Imagine walking into a forest where the trees seem to whisper your name, where the air grows heavier the deeper you go, and where no one who has stayed too long has ever come back the same. Tonight, I will tell you about a place known by locals only in hushed voices. A woodland that doesn't just trap your body, it traps your soul. Some call it cursed, others believe it's alive. But all who dare to enter agree on one thing: the forest does not let go. The first stories about this forest came from loggers in the 1950s. They claimed their compasses spun wildly, that tools disappeared overnight, and that sometimes, in the early morning mist, the trees were different. A path cleared the day before would vanish. A stump would reappear as though it had never been cut. It was as if the forest was healing itself, fighting back against those who tried to wound it. Not long after, men began to go missing. Search parties were sent in, only to find abandoned gear, footprints that ended in the middle of nowhere, or worse, blood smeared on tree bark leading to nothing. No animals, no tracks, just silence. One by one, the logging crews pulled out. The forest remained untouched. By the 1970s, hikers and teenagers began sneaking in. They called it the loop because anyone who went too far inside claimed they would always end up back at the same clearing, no matter which direction they walked. Some swore they had walked for hours, even days, only to find themselves standing in front of the same moss-covered boulder. Exhausted, dehydrated, they stumbled out weeks later with no memory of how they survived. One of the most chilling accounts came from a young woman named Mary Holt in 1974. She vanished with her boyfriend during a camping trip. 3 weeks later, she was found alone at the edge of town, clothes shredded, feet torn and bloody. She couldn't speak at first. When she finally did, she whispered only one sentence: it wouldn't let him leave. She never explained what that meant. She never spoke again. Over the decades, the forest became a place of dares. Teenagers would drive out, daring each other to step 10, 20, 30 feet past the tree line. Those who went further often claimed to hear voices, sometimes their friends, sometimes loved ones who weren't even there. A few said they saw lantern lights moving in the distance, as if someone else was deep inside, waiting. But when they tried to follow, the lights would vanish, and the forest would feel angry. In 1988, a research team from the State University decided to investigate. They set up camp with cameras, audio equipment, and satellite trackers. For the first 2 nights, nothing unusual happened, just the sound of wildlife and the occasional breeze. But on the 3rd night, something strange occurred. Every single recording device failed at exactly 2:13 a.m. Not one malfunction, all of them shut off at the same moment. When the researchers awoke, their campsite was in ruins, their tents slashed as though by enormous claws. No one reported seeing or hearing anything. The project was abandoned. The most unsettling part? The team's journals survived. One of the graduate students had written, "The forest is aware of us. It changes when we sleep. The trees aren't in the same place. It feels like it's trying to hurt us." That entry was written hours before the equipment failure. By the 1990s, locals had given the place a nickname: the forest that doesn't let go. And yet, despite all the warnings, people kept going in. Some came out dazed, unable to recall their names. Others never came out at all. Families filed missing persons reports, but after years of unanswered questions, they stopped searching. It was as if the forest swallowed people whole. Then, in 2001, a police officer named Daniel Reese responded to a late-night call. A hiker had stumbled into town, barefoot and incoherent, mumbling about faces in the trees. Reese drove the man to the hospital but decided to investigate for himself. He left his cruiser parked by the trailhead and walked inside with only a flashlight. He was never seen again. The only trace of him ever found was his radio, discovered weeks later, wedged into the trunk of a tree, as if the forest had absorbed it. By 2010, the forest was officially marked as restricted land. The state cited environmental protection, but locals whispered it was to keep people out. Still, thrill seekers ignored the warnings. That year, a group of college students went missing after uploading a video online. In the footage, They laugh and drink beer as they enter the woods at sunset. By the second clip, filmed hours later, their mood is different. One girl insists she sees someone standing between the trees. Another swears he hears his mother's voice, even though she was hundreds of miles away. The final seconds show the group running, the camera spinning wildly before going black. The footage was recovered from a phone found on the forest floor. None of the students were ever located. Paranormal investigators have tried to map the forest's layout. Every attempt has failed. Paths twist back on themselves. Landmarks appear to move. One researcher claimed he marked a tree with a knife, only to find the same tree unmarked 10 minutes later. Another swore he heard footsteps following him, though he was alone. His audio recorder picked up a second set of footsteps, and a faint whisper repeating his name. Scientists attempted to dismiss these claims as mass hysteria or psychological suggestion. They said the forest simply disorients people, but even skeptics struggled to explain the strange phenomenon of time distortion. Survivors often reported losing hours, even days, with no sense of hunger or fatigue. Watches stopped, batteries drained instantly, and the sun itself seemed to set too quickly. One hunter, gone for what he thought was an afternoon, returned home to find that 3 months had passed. His beard was longer, his clothes were in tatters, but his memory was empty. Some believe the forest is built on a thin place, a rift between our world and another. Others whisper of old rituals that settlers hundreds of years ago used the woods for sacrifices. There are records of a preacher in the 1800s who led his congregation into the forest for a journey to the other side. None of them were ever seen again. Only a Bible was found, its pages scattered across the undergrowth, names written inside crossed out with ink so thick it tore the parchment. The most unsettling stories, however, don't come from outsiders. They come from those who live closest to the forest. Farmers say their livestock refuse to graze near the tree line. Dogs howl and claw at their chains if taken too close. Children sometimes wake in the night claiming they heard knocking at their windows, slow, deliberate, and always in sets of 3. And when they look outside, the trees seem closer than they were the day before. In 2017, a hiker named Alex Ramirez documented his experience on a forum before vanishing. He posted daily updates, describing strange sounds, shifting trails, and dreams of people he had never met. His final entry was chilling. "I can hear my own voice calling me deeper. I know if I follow it, I won't come back. But it's so convincing. It sounds just like me." He was never heard from again. That same year, a team of volunteers searching for missing persons claimed to see figures moving between the trees. At first, they thought it was their own party, until they realized the figures had no faces, just smooth, pale skin where eyes and mouths should have been. Terrified, they fled, but one member of the group never made it out. His body was later found, fused into the trunk of a tree, as though the wood had grown around him. The forest doesn't just trap, it consumes. Locals believe every missing person becomes part of it. That's why voices are heard. That's why figures are seen. The forest uses the souls of those it takes, luring the next victim deeper and deeper until there is no escape. Even now, strange lights are reported flickering above the canopy. Hunters whisper about hearing children laughing where no children could possibly be. Travelers say their GPS units glitch when they drive past the edge of the woods, as if something inside refuses to be mapped. And the most terrifying part, the forest is still there, still waiting. No fences, no locked gates, just a tree line and silence. Anyone could step inside, and once you do, the question isn't whether you'll come back. The question is what part of you the forest will decide to keep. So tell me, would you dare step into a place that has swallowed hundreds of souls and refuses to let them go? Maybe one night you'll hear the voices calling from the tree line, whispering your name, asking you to follow. But remember, the forest never gives back what it takes. If this story kept you awake tonight, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and share your own chilling experiences in the comments. Your story might be the next one we bring to life. Imagine a town that simply disappeared. One night, its streets were alive with music, laughter, and neon lights. By the next morning, there was nothing left but empty roads leading nowhere, and silence so heavy it felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. No ruins, no ashes, just absence. Locals still whisper about it, the town that vanished without warning, as if swallowed by another world. Tonight, we're going to walk through its ghostly history, step by step, and uncover why some people say the town isn't gone at all. It's still waiting for you. The place was called Ashwood, a mining town founded in the late 1800s. For decades, it thrived on coal and steel. Families grew up there, generations lived and died under the shadow of its smokestacks. It had diners, schools, movie theaters, even its own baseball team. But one night in the summer of 1953, everything changed. The last confirmed sighting of Ashwood came from a delivery driver named Samuel Clark. He stopped at the local diner just before midnight, dropped off his goods, and waved goodbye to the waitress, a young woman named June. By the time he returned, the next morning, the diner was gone. The street was gone. The entire town was gone. At first, police thought he was lying or drunk. But when officers drove out to where Ashwood should have been, they found only empty hills and forest. No buildings, no rubble, just dirt and trees, as if the town had never existed. And yet, the roads leading into Ashwood still cut through the woods, only to stop abruptly in fields of overgrown grass. People refused to believe it. Families of residents demanded answers. But when maps were checked, Ashwood had been erased. State records claimed the town had never existed. Birth certificates, property deeds, even old newspapers mentioning Ashwood were gone. It was as though the town had been plucked out of time itself. Only a handful of documents survived: personal letters, photographs, diaries hidden in attics miles away. In these fragments, people described the days leading up to the disappearance: strange lights above the mine, humming sounds beneath the ground, and whispers carried on the wind at night. Some wrote about sleepwalking into the woods, waking up covered in mud. Others claimed they dreamed of being swallowed by darkness that smelled of coal and sulfur. Survivors, people who happened to be away that night, never returned to normal. June, the waitress Samuel had spoken to, was supposed to be at work when the town vanished. Instead, she had gone to visit her sister in a nearby county. When she heard the news, she broke down, screaming that she had felt it happen. That same night, she was found wandering barefoot along the road, mumbling, "They're not gone. They're underneath." Over the years, travelers began reporting strange encounters along the old Ashwood Road. Drivers claimed their radios would cut to static as they neared the vanished town's borders. Some saw streetlights flicker in the distance, even though there were no poles anymore. A few swore they saw figures shadowy, flickering across the road ahead, vanishing into the tree line. One of the most chilling accounts came from a man named Harold Green, who had grown up in Ashwood. He had been away at a summer job and returned the next morning to find nothing. No town, no streets, no houses. He walked along what should have been Main Street and felt the ground tremble slightly, like a heartbeat. And then he heard a faint, echoing laughter, as though the town itself was alive and mocking him. Harold tried to contact his family, but no one had records. His mother, father, siblings, officially, they had never existed. Neighbors who once lived nearby stared blankly at him, insisting he had grown up in a different town. His friends, his school erased. Even memories of Ashwood seemed to vanish from everyone's mind except his own. Over the years, investigators and paranormal enthusiasts tried to find traces of Ashwood. Drones, satellite imagery, old maps, everything pointed to nothing. Yet those who dared to walk the old roads at night often reported seeing lights flicker in the distance, hearing music, even faint voices calling names. People who followed the sounds sometimes disappeared for hours or days, only to reappear miles away, with no memory of how they got there. Some theorists believe Ashwood exists in a parallel dimension, a town caught between realities. Those who claim to have entered it describe streets that loop endlessly, houses that shift locations, and shadows that seem to move against the wind. A single turn can lead someone back to the exact same spot they started, as if the town refuses to let go of anyone who enters its phantom streets. One famous account involves a journalist named Rachel Moore. She drove to the area in 1982 to write an article about the missing town. She recorded her journey on tape. At first, it was uneventful, just overgrown fields. But soon, her car radio began picking up faint sounds, laughter, footsteps, and a woman calling Rachel repeatedly. Confused, she followed the sound, only to find herself standing in front of a diner that hadn't existed in decades. Inside, the lights flickered, and shadows moved in the corners. She backed away in fear, but when she looked up at the road, again, her car and the street had disappeared. She was found hours later, miles from where she had entered, trembling, with the tape recorder still running, capturing everything. Residents from nearby towns began to report more and more strange phenomena. People who traveled down the Ashwood Road at night sometimes never returned. Others came back with inexplicable injuries, torn clothing, and mud covering them from head to toe. Some claimed that when they looked up, the stars were wrong, the night sky didn't match the calendar. Theories emerged. Some claimed the town had been a kind of experiment, an abandoned government project, a test in time manipulation. Others whispered that Ashwood had been cursed long before it was founded, a place where the ground itself was alive and could consume people. Shamanistic legends spoke of a fold in reality, beneath the earth, where spirits of the past lingered, waiting for the living to stumble into their domain. One of the eeriest reports came from a group of teenagers in 1999. They camped along the old road leading to Ashwood, daring each other to venture closer. As midnight approached, the forest around them grew unnaturally quiet. Then, distant music, old jazz from the 194OS, echoed faintly. Shadows moved in rhythm with the sound. Terrified, they ran back to their car only to discover that one of their friends was missing. Hours later, he appeared on the outskirts of town, dazed, whispering that he had walked the streets of Ashwood, and the town remembered me. Scholars who studied these accounts noted something consistent. The town always seemed to remember those who entered it. Photographs captured nothing but blurred shapes. Compasses spun wildly. Watches stopped working. People who ventured too far often returned changed, quieter, haunted, as if carrying a piece of the vanished town inside them. Even in the modern day, Ashwood's Road is a place of legends. Drivers report GPS units malfunctioning, phones losing signal, and strange radio frequencies broadcasting voices that no one can identify. Hikers say that on foggy nights, you can see the outline of buildings, the glow of neon signs, even the silhouettes of people walking, but when approached, it all vanishes like mist. Paranormal investigators describe similar experiences. One team entered with thermal cameras, motion sensors, and audio recorders. Within hours, all electronic devices malfunctioned. They claimed to see shadowy figures moving behind invisible walls, hear echoes of conversations, and feel the sensation of being watched. Hours later, they exited, reporting that the town stretched and contracted like a living organism. Some locals insist that Ashwood has never truly gone. On certain nights, if you drive slowly along the old road, you can hear laughter, see car lights moving in the distance, or glimpse shadows walking down streets that no longer exist. People who have tried to follow them often vanish, and those who return rarely speak of what they saw, but the haunted look in their eyes tells the story. Ashwood's mystery has inspired countless theories and legends. A town trapped between dimensions, a living ghost, or a place where time itself folded in on itself. But one thing is clear: Ashwood is not just a town that disappeared. It is a place that waits, it watches, and it will never let go. So would you dare drive down the road that leads to Ashwood, knowing that the town might still be waiting for you? Remember, the vanished streets, the flickering lights, and the whispers in the dark are not just stories, they are warnings. If this tale sent chills down your spine, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share your own experiences in the comments. Who knows, maybe your story will be the next one Ashwood remembers. Imagine waiting at a lonely train station late at night, the clock ticking past midnight, when suddenly a train appears on a track that wasn't on the schedule. Its lights are dim, its whistle echoing like a scream across the empty platform. Those who have boarded it say they were never the same again, or never returned at all. Tonight, we'll tell the story of a train that defies time, space, and logic, a train that waits for no one, yet claims everyone who steps inside. The first reports date back to the 1920s, when rail workers in the small town of Hollow Creek noticed a pattern. A train would appear around 12:37 a.m. at a track that wasn't used. It had no number, no schedule, and no conductor that anyone could identify. Workers who tried to approach it reported seeing shadowy figures in the windows, staring silently. One night, a brakeman named Thomas Wilkes decided to step inside. The doors opened as if welcoming him. Inside, he saw empty seats stretching endlessly, a thick fog clinging to the floor. As the train began to move, Thomas looked out the window, expecting to see the familiar countryside. Instead, the landscape was twisted forests that didn't exist, towns that had been abandoned for decades, and roads that led nowhere. Thomas never returned. His whistle was later found on the platform, bent and charred as if burned by an unseen fire. The train was gone. Witnesses claim it appeared and disappeared like a phantom, vanishing as suddenly as it arrived. In the 1950s, Hollow Creek became famous for its midnight phantom train. Locals swore they could hear the distant whistle on foggy nights, long after all regular trains had stopped running. Some reported seeing the train approach the station, only to disappear into the darkness before it could stop. Tourists and thrill-seekers began visiting the station, hoping to glimpse the mysterious train. Few admitted they actually boarded it, and even fewer came back. Those who did were changed. Some spoke of endless corridors and rooms that twisted back upon themselves. Others claimed to hear whispers from passengers who weren't there, calling their names or asking them to stay forever. In 1974, a conductor named Elijah Grant shared his terrifying account. He was on duty during a late shift when the phantom train rolled into the station. Unlike previous sightings, the doors opened, and he was compelled to step aboard. Inside, he found passengers wearing old-fashioned clothing from the 1800s, their eyes hollow, their faces pale. When he tried to leave, he discovered the doors no longer led outside. The train had begun moving, faster than any engine should have been able to. Elijah recorded everything in a notebook he miraculously kept hidden in his coat pocket. He wrote, "The train is alive. It breathes. It waits for those who are lonely, lost, or curious. And when it claims you, there is no return." By the 1980 seconds, the story of the phantom train had spread beyond Hollow Creek. Rail enthusiasts, urban explorers, and even journalists attempted to document it. Cameras malfunctioned, tapes erased themselves, and compasses spun wildly. Those who boarded the train reported seeing cities that never existed, landscapes from the past and future overlapping, and people from eras long gone. One of the most disturbing accounts came from a young woman named Clara Simmons. She boarded the train after missing the last regular service home. Inside, the train car seemed normal at first: rows of empty seats, dim lights, the faint smell of coal smoke. But after hours, or maybe days, she wasn't sure, she realized that the outside world had vanished. The sky was a sickly green, stars shifted in impossible patterns, and whispers filled the car, repeating her deepest fears and regrets. Clara wandered the train cars, noticing that the interior seemed to stretch endlessly. Doors led to more doors, corridors looped impossibly, and windows showed landscapes that changed each time she looked. At one point, she saw a man standing perfectly still, staring at her from a distant car. When she approached, he vanished, leaving behind only the faint echo of a laugh. Soon, she encountered other passengers, people who seemed lost, wandering aimlessly. They were silent, their eyes glassy, unblinking. Some looked as though they had aged decades and days. When she tried to speak to them, they whispered things she didn't understand, their voices carrying a weight of despair that pressed on her chest. The train itself seemed aware of her thoughts and fears. Clara noticed that whenever she tried to remember her life outside, the train would shift, and she would forget something else: names, memories, even the feeling of her own hands. Panic set in as she realized the train didn't just trap her body, it was erasing her existence. Meanwhile, Outside, at the Hollow Creek station, locals reported seeing the train passing in the dead of night. Its lights were dim, and a thick fog seemed to trail behind it. People claimed they could hear faint screams, laughter, and music coming from the cars. Dogs howled, compasses spun, and electronic devices malfunctioned near the tracks. In 1998, a group of amateur paranormal investigators decided to spend the night at the station, hoping to capture evidence. They set up cameras, audio recorders, and motion sensors. At precisely 12:37 a.m., the train appeared as it always did. Cameras failed instantly. Audio devices captured only static, punctuated by faint whispers. One investigator swore he felt hands on his shoulders, though no one was near. The team fled, leaving much of their equipment behind, which was later found bent, broken, or fused together in impossible ways. Clara's ordeal continued as the train moved through impossible landscapes, cities half buried in sand, forests where the trees twisted upward into the sky, and oceans reflecting moons that didn't exist. She encountered other passengers who seemed to be living in an endless loop, reliving the same moments over and over. Some begged her to leave, warning her that the train feeds on fear and curiosity. She learned from a few who had partially retained memory that the train was not bound by time. It could move to the past, the future, or to dimensions unknown. Those who boarded could witness history firsthand or horrors yet to come, but the cost was often their sanity, their identity, or their very existence. By 2005, stories of the phantom train had spread nationwide. Rail enthusiasts, journalists, and thrill-seekers ventured to Hollow Creek, hoping to glimpse it. Some saw it from a distance. Few claimed to have boarded it. Those who returned were quiet, haunted, and reluctant to speak of what they saw. A few had been altered physically: gray hair, pallid skin, shaking hands despite being young when they boarded. In 2014, Clara finally found a way to send a note outside, hidden inside a lunchbox abandoned in a car at a station. The note read, "The train waits for those who are curious. It remembers your name. It knows your fears. Don't follow the lights. Don't answer the whispers. It will never let you go." Paranormal researchers hypothesize that the train itself is conscious, a predator of sorts that preys on human curiosity and wanderlust. It exists outside normal time and space, feeding on those who are alone, lost, or seeking something they can't quite name. Locals continue to warn travelers to avoid the tracks at night, and yet, every year, the train claims new passengers, sometimes seen, sometimes never found, their absence swallowed into the endless corridors of its cars. Even now, the tracks at Hollow Creek are silent. Yet if you wait past midnight, some swear you'll hear a whistle slicing through the darkness, followed by the low rumble of wheels on metal. If you're tempted to investigate, remember, the train is patient. It waits, and once it chooses you, there is no timetable for your return. So would you dare wait at the station past midnight, hoping to see the train that doesn't appear on any schedule? Remember, curiosity is the bait, and once the train chooses you, there may be no coming back. If this story sent chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your own eerie encounters in the comments. Maybe the train is listening, and your name could be next.